Love and Watches is a podcast for male and female watch lovers alike. Perpetual Girl and Ranch Racer are a watch-crazy wife and husband team bringing you the latest in news, gossip, controversy, and anything else that matters in the world of watches. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hey guys and gals, welcome to another edition of the Love and Watches podcast. This is the podcast for all watch lovers, and I'm Ranch Racer.
And I'm Perpetual Girl, and this is episode 23.
Episode 23. What are our topics for today? This is kind of you kind of came up with the topics for this one today.
I guess if you could say one word, I think the topic is bundling. You know, like your phone and your internet and your but with watches.
Okay.
I think the reason we're going to talk about bundling is because Valentine's Day is this week, and I was thinking, you know, being a husband-wife team, a lot of people have trouble buying gifts for their spouse, and
I know I have in the past.
I think it's tough for the guys, especially. So I have a few ideas of my own based on some of the things that I've recently purchased for myself and discovered through Pinterest or as a gift from you. And we have talked about, you know, gift watches before, right before Christmas. We talked about different brands. We made suggestions of some brands that we thought were really great entry level or under $500 or even under $200. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today and how to get your wife, spouse, etc. started on a watch hobby, maybe by kind of introducing it as an accessory, because it's not just a watch, it's a lot of things. So
that's
what we're going to talk about.
That's what makes this show so unique, right? I mean, we always hope we're bringing something unique to you guys, and nothing against any of the other podcasts out there. There are several I listen to, but it's usually in the watch world. It's usually a couple dudes talking watches, maybe talking about other guys' stuff. Which is great. Like for me, I love it. But our whole point was to bring more people into this hobby, to welcome women into this hobby, be more open for them. So this show is really, it's for our guy listeners, because they're going to have a woman giving them suggestions about what they should buy their wife or girlfriend or whatever for Valentine's Day. And for our female listeners, it might give them some good ideas that they can pass on to their non-watch loving husband or boyfriend, right? So
or partner, whatever.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, we hope that we're always bringing you guys something unique, but I think this is what we feel we bring to the table when it comes to podcasts and watch blogs and all the stuff around the watch world, is that you're getting that other side of the coin that you just don't get that often. So I thought when PG suggested this topic to me, I thought it was perfect. And we're a little bit late just in the way we do our podcast, and we missed last week. We finally just decided we were just too sick to do it. We brought one to you guys a couple weeks ago, and we were coughing and hacking the whole time. So we are now finally over our flus. So we thought this was a good one to do, because let's see, there's 4 days to Valentine's Day. When this releases, you guys will have 3 days. So still enough time to like do an overnight delivery or a 2-day delivery or something like that. If
or
you
shop
buy it
local,
online, or
shop local at your mall.
Yep.
We're not going to go crazy with you know, the upper end of the expense side. I think I'm kind of looking at it about $500 or less,
like total
with all the things involved, or it could be a little bit less depending on brands and such. So
okay.
Do you want to start with a wrist check?
We can start with a wrist check. We did have a couple other topics we're going to try to add in here. One was we're going to talk a little bit about water resistance, because we're always getting questions from listeners about water resistance and should I wear this in the pool. This is a topic that's been covered ad nauseum on other blogs and podcasts and everything. But for our listeners that maybe haven't gotten the education or haven't heard about it or new to watches, we're going to kind of go over the ratings, what they mean. You know, what's safe to shower with versus do dishes with versus don't get it anywhere near water versus, you know, you can go swimming in the ocean. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We might just kind of throw out some of our wishes for 2019, what we hope to see in the market, in the watch world. And then, you were going to talk about moon phase, which is awesome because you just got your new moon phase. Yeah. We might get to that. So kind of, I guess along those lines, why don't we start with the wrist check?
Sure. You go first.
Oh, me first? Okay. I am wearing a watch that I bought probably a couple months ago now. And it's the Traska Freediver Gray Dial.
1 month.
Was it a month? It's the Gray Dial, which was kind of a limited release that the guys did after their Kickstarter campaign, where PG bought the mint dial with the silver bezel.
I love.
Yeah, and beautiful watch. I never wore it. There's just something that just wasn't working on my wrist, and then this great Gray Dial came out, and it was pretty much love at first sight. I had to have it, so been wearing it a lot. It's 40 millimeters, so it's a great size for pretty much any wrist, unless you have really, really, really tiny wrists. That can be challenging for anything. But at 40, it's great for me. Works good for you. 12.5 millimeters thick with the crystal. It's a pretty much a flush crystal. Really nice coin edge. 120 click unidirectional black sapphire bezel. It's also loomed, which is, I think it's all BGW9, so it's fantastic loom. Lasts pretty much all night. Mm-hmm. The only negative for me with this watch was the H-Link bracelet, and it's not that it's not a good quality bracelet, but for whatever reason, because of the design, and we've seen this with some other folks on Instagram, if you have hairy arms, it's just constantly pulling at the hairs.
I didn't notice that.
Of course, you didn't notice it. So I don't wear it on the bracelet. I've got it on. There's a black and gray stripe Toxic Natos from Terry.
Bond style.
I love it. Yeah, I guess it's kind of, but it doesn't have the red and the green. The True Bond had the red and green stripes too. So that's what I wear it on. One thing I really like about this one is they do that they have a proprietary coating that they put on the case. I don't know if they put on the bracelet. I know for sure they do it on the case. And so if you think 316L stainless steel, which is pretty much what everybody uses these days, except for Rolex, they use their 904 proprietary or whatever it is. But 316L steel, if you look at it on the Vickers, it's called the Vickers hardness scale. It's about 150 HV on the Vickers hardness scale. So that's how resistant it is to scratches and bumps and bangs and that kind of stuff. The hardening increases that by 10 times, so it jumps it up to 1500 HV. So this thing will not scratch. I mean, you really have to. You'd have to slam it really hard into something for it to scratch down, or dent or anything like that. So that's what I'm wearing. Fantastic watch. Gets a ton of wrist time, even at night, like I said, because of the loom last. So this is a really fun one. Mm-hmm. Traska, there's Traska Notice. Those are kind of two of our favorite up and coming micro brands, just because in our interfacing with the owners, they really, really care about the product and work hard to deliver something that everyone's going to like, and at a good price point and very high quality. So definitely, if you haven't checked out Traska, go check them out. Can't wait to see what they come up with next.
Yeah, their quality is great.
Yeah. Yep. That's it.
Okay. My turn. I'm wearing the Frederic Constant moon phase that I just got on vacation.
Which we talked about in the last podcast, you didn't have in hand yet.
I didn't have it yet, arrived. But I have it on right now. Really love it. It's very different than
it's awesome.
Anything I have. Yeah. It's a dress watch, but it's got the plain bezel, so it doesn't have that super duper diamond bling to it, which I tried on. It was gorgeous.
You did try the diamond
just dial, gorgeous.
The diamond bezel.
That one was even still less than a Rolex would be retail, but I just didn't want to go there spending wise. Yeah. But I really love it. It's got the moon phase. It's got a date wheel, and the moon phase is fun for me because living in the country, I like to know. It's always exciting when the moon's full because it just looks so beautiful outside. Mm-hmm. So
fun to know when that is.
Yeah, and we might, if we have time, we might talk a little bit about moon phase and a little bit of history of it.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have time because it's a neat.
It's like one of the first. Yeah, it's one of the first ways that people learn to count the months passing. So
yeah.
Some people feel it's a really useless complication, but for me, I think it's charming, super charming. It's artsy. It's got the This one actually has little stars behind the moon. It's really pretty.
So, it's funny that you mentioned that, and I'm going to say this really quickly, but when someone says it's a useless complication, it cracks me up, because you could say that about chronographs, you could say that about dates, you could say that about a 3-hand watch today in 2018 or 2019. Now, what do you need one for? It's useless, right? You've got your phone, the time's everywhere, got your computer, your laptop, your iPad or your tablet or whatever. So it bugs me when people say that's a useless complication. Well, honestly, the watch you're wearing is useless.
But it's convenient. You're wearing it and you don't have to hold it. So it's quite different than a phone.
It's exactly like a 3-hand watch. Having the time on your wrist is convenient. For me, it's
very
convenient, but I could live without it. We buy them because we love them. We're intrigued by watches, especially mechanicals, although we love quartz and we have a lot of quartz watches. Mm-hmm.
We're about half and half split on that.
We are, actually. Yeah, we're probably about half and half. But yeah, so it seems like kind of a silly thing to say. Just like if someone says, well, chronograph is useless. Well, I suppose you're right, but so is just wearing a watch in general. So if you don't like the complication, great. Don't buy one, but don't put it down in front of others or tell them that they wasted their money on a watch because it has a complication you might think is useless.
Hey, like an alarm on a watch is sort of useless because we have alarm phones. But look at the G-Shock, how popular that is.
Watches are not a utility item anymore. It's not a tool.
Well,
like
for me it is.
It used to be. They were useful because they were tools that did something that nothing else did, except a big mantle clock that you can't wear on your wrist or put in your pocket, right? So now they're not. They're a collector's item. I mean,
well,
you could
I
almost
use mine as a tool for timing things, like turning on water hoses.
Yeah, I understand that, but my point is they're not a necessary tool anymore. So saying a complication is useless is kind of silly.
Like the railroad.
If you're going to say that, fine. You're right, but so is just wearing a 3-hand watch, right? I mean, they're collector's items.
But they're also fashion accessories. They're also jewelry, which is where I'm going to go today with that.
Awesome. So should we dive into that first?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a great topic. So guys, basically what PG's going to do is she's going to give you just
a few ideas,
some bundling ideas, which is great because you like handbags and scarves and that kind of stuff. And
I'm not a super duper obsessed handbag. A lot of girls are really into handbags. So I'm going to give you some ideas of styles of scarves and handbags and jewelry. And then you can either choose to purchase an expensive silk Hermès scarf, or you can choose to buy an homage, but the same size for, $20 versus $175.
So awesome.
So you can
they have
pick your budget.
In purses and scarves too, not
they
just
do.
Watches.
And the reason I am so excited about it is that I just recently, when we went to Las Vegas, you bought me my first Hermès scarf.
The little one.
The little tiny
I can't
twilly.
afford the big ones.
Teeny. And I'd never really seen a scarf like this before, but I'm telling you, I'm having so much fun with this style. It's only 2 inches wide and about 32 inches long, and you can do anything with it. You can wear it around your neck. You can wear it around your wrist as a bracelet. You can tie it on your handbag. It's a thing. Mm-hmm. There's a whole thing with purses and these little scarves. So I've also seen some online, a company that I just bought a purse from because I drool over the Hermès Birkins, which are like $10,000 or $12,000, and I cannot do that. Mm-hmm. Some people can, and that's fantastic. But I found a company called Black Sheep that makes a jelly type bag. It's plastic and waterproof, vegan, and it's very similar to that Hermès style with the same kind of clasps. And it was $150.
So what is vegan? When you're talking about like a purse, what is vegan? Like it's not made out of meat, so it's not made out of ground beef.
Not made out of leather.
Gotcha. Okay. No leather. What makes it vegetarian versus vegan? Do you know?
Well,
because I've heard both terms.
As in food, vegetarian means that you eat milk products or eggs, products from the animal. But if you're a vegan, you don't eat the products from an animal like an egg or
got it.
Or dairy.
So basically, there's no product in that.
There's no animal product.
There's
in
nothing
the purse.
in that product that comes from an animal. So
like my two handbags that I have, one is a leather and the other one is the plastic one I just got, and I love both of them.
Right.
And being an animal lover and rescuing animals, I try to make conscious choices to choose vegan or vegetarian over not.
I'm
not always good about that, but I also check my sources. Mm-hmm. So as far as our food, we are always, buying local, but I don't want to get too far into food. I'm going to stick with accessories, but it's a good question.
Kind of fascinating, right? Because when I think of vegetarian or especially vegan, I'm thinking food, but you actually have products that are marketed
absolutely
that way
like
too.
my little brown boots that I wear outside. Those are vegan. They're like polyester.
Gotcha.
They're not UGG boots. They're not sheep skin.
Yeah.
They're plastic and synthetic
and
materials.
It's just like coats.
Correct.
I mean,
like
the new synthetic materials work way better than down, yet they still sell down coats, which is silly.
That's I'm
really
a big
brutal,
advocate.
Right?
Yeah, I don't want to make everybody sad, but it's pretty bad.
It's terrible.
It's a horrible, horrible industry. So when I see things that they say are vegan, I go for it.
Yeah. So are we going to be able to provide links to our listeners so they can, when you give them the ideas, they can actually just go click and buy the stuff?
I'm
going
to put some photos on.
Oh, perfect.
I took some combinations of my own watches, and I think the best way to start this, since we are a watch podcast, is if you want to give a watch as a gift to your honey.
But maybe they're not into watches, right?
Maybe they're not into watches, but
you're trying to get them into watches.
Start with the watch first. So if you know that your partner wears a lot of sterling silver, or they wear a lot of yellow gold, or they wear a lot of rose gold, you can start from there and choose a wristwatch that's, similar. You okay, honey?
Well, I'm fine.
We're still kind of getting over this whole awful thing that the whole country has. Start with the watch and with the metal. That's my advice. Like me, I like two-tone. Not everybody likes two-tone, but I find two-tone is pretty versatile, especially if you wear silver and yellow or silver and rose gold. But pick your metal color, and then choose your watch. So we talked a little bit at Christmas about brands and about some of the more modern eco-drive and solar watches, which are fantastic for people just getting into watches because they don't have to think about it, especially the solar. So although I really have an affinity, and you do too, for the automatic and manual wind-up, getting started, there's nothing wrong with going with quartz.
There's nothing wrong with quartz even for... I still buy quartz watches. They're great. So the brands that I really like, you cannot go wrong with Seiko. And you can even go automatic with Seiko, like a Seiko 5. Mm-hmm. You can get them all day long for under $100 on Amazon. You could probably find them in the mall. I'm not sure, though. I haven't really seen many Seiko 5s, but probably there's Macy's.
plenty of...
I think like a Macy's would have them.
Amazon Prime, you can get a Seiko 5 in all different colors. They have cream dials, blue, black. I actually took a photo of my Seiko 5 black dial that I think I paid... Did I pay $80 for that?
Yeah, it was like
I think I paid
70 to 80.
And it's an automatic with an exhibition back. I think it's 36. It's a really nice size.
That's awesome.
And so you pick your watch, and depending on your budget, get something that you can afford, have your cap, and then go from there. So I just love these little scarves that I got. I took a bunch of photos of different watches with different scarves. And the company that I got that purse from, they also sell the scarves, and they sell them for $20 each, which is a lot less than $175. But hey, if you can afford the Hermes silk scarf, do it, because there's just nothing like that kind of a quality. So either way, I think it's a win. Get a scarf that has a little bit of the color in it, and then an accent color. So it doesn't have to be like a solid matchy. Just have one color that matches it. Don't overthink it. And you can tie this scarf on your wrist like a bracelet right next to the watch.
You've posted a lot of those.
I have. You can tie it around your neck, and you can tie it around your purse. So if your honey has a really nice purse that she carries all the time, I'd say the majority of women carry purses. Unless, like me, in the summer, sometimes I just put things in my pockets, depending on what animal I'm dealing with. But these scarves you can tie onto your purses too, and they're adorable. It's a really cute way to accessorize. And I'm 50, so I'm not in that super young hip category anymore. But this style even works for me.
Right.
So I think it's kind of a timeless accessory for anybody. You can tie it around your had like a headband. You can use it as a belt. Just really, really versatile. And you can go on Pinterest and there's like 50 ways to tie your, twilly scarf. You can find things all day long. Another thing to go with it is if they don't have a new handbag, find a handbag. And there are tons and tons and tons of handbags at Macy's or large department stores or Ross or Marshall's or anywhere where
online.
Or online, and get a neutral color. Get red or white. White for summer is really hot right now. Or black. You can never have, you can always match a black purse. So like me, I have a brown purse, a black purse, and a white purse. And then I have a couple other like just, tote type things. But any kind of a colorful scarf is going to match on a white or a black purse. So if you get a watch that's neutral and you get some things to match it, you can wrap up, put the watch inside the handbag as the wrapping, and you can have a lot of fun with, kind of bundling up these things that you normally wouldn't go out and say, oh, I think I'm going to buy my girlfriend a scarf. It's like, you don't really think of that. So that's just something I've discovered recently that I think really works. And I think it's really thoughtful. So if you present your honey with something like that, I think they're going to be like, wow, this is really, really cute and versatile. And I can wear this with all these different things. And what a great idea. So,
well, I think it's like watching what you've been buying and looking at, I think it would be like, it'd be really fun to give you a handbag with one of those little scarves tied around the handle. And then when you open it up, there's a watch inside. And that's cool, right? That like the bag is the wrapping, and then you've got even more stuff inside. And
they all go together because they're accessories. I mean, a watch is an accessory.
Right.
It can even be a fashion watch, but it's all going to look good together because you're kind of introducing the person to, wow, this is a really cool watch. I mean, yeah, it's a watch and it matches my bracelet or my shirt or whatever, but this is, it could be a smartwatch. Because some of the smartwatches now look like regular watches. Right. And it's just kind of a neat way to introduce someone. I didn't really get into too much to jewelry, but we've talked about jewelry before.
Right.
And a lot of gals liked, and guys like to wear bracelets with their watches. So that's another fun one where sometimes I'll wear a bracelet on one hand with a scarf and then my watch by itself so I don't scratch it. I have a fantastic leather bracelet that you bought me. You can get all different price points of leather bracelets. So you can get designer boutique bracelets or any kind of leather beaded bracelets. So that you could do the hat trick bundle.
So, all right. So do you have like bundle number one that you can talk people through, like the watch and the purse and the scarf type stuff?
I have some photos.
So let's talk about some of what your recommendations are.
And these are all just, it's all just whatever you want to do with it. There's no hard and fast rule, really.
Oh, of course not. You just want to try to give our guy listeners some good ideas.
Some of the examples I saw online for watches, like I said before, the Citizen, Eco Drive, Quartz's, Seiko has solar. Seiko 5 is an automatic watch, and that's a really affordable watch because it doesn't have a lot of diamonds or anything on it. So you could spend under $100 on a watch like that, which those are awesome watches to get people started.
Do you have any reference numbers or?
Some of the ones that I've seen, like the one that we gave your mother and your mom last year, is a Bulova automatic, and that's a really lovely, gorgeous watch. I think it
Bulova's a great brand.
That was about $300 though, I think. So that's a little higher.
That's all right. It's still affordable.
But it's an automatic and it had an open heart,
yeah,
which is really cute. There's actually a lot of open heart styles that are heart shaped. If you really want to go Valentine-y.
And I want to say it was like a 32 or a 34 millimeter.
It's a 34. It's about the same size as a Datejust or my
with
other
a white, I think,
mother of pearl dial. So Bulova makes that. They make that one in blue. And then there are a number of Citizen and other Bulovas that are, they're definitely more feminine and they have diamonds on them. They're under $500. You can get the same watches without the diamonds for less. I'm a big fan of two-tone, but you don't have to do that. So just kind of get to know what kind of jewelry she already has or he already has, and then go from there. But that I just kind of took my watches. Mm-hmm. Here comes the secretary.
The secretary is coming in.
I took my watches and paired them up with some scarves And I can tell you like the color themes. So,
okay. Yeah, that would be good.
Okay. So the first one I wanted to talk about is, I just played around this morning with my existing collection and a few scarves that I have. I have about 4 or 5 of these little scarves, from varying price ranges. So if you're going to go two-tone, it kind of gives you a little more flexibility as far as your jewelry, or you can go all one metal color. So for example, I was wearing my Speedmaster with the mother of pearl dial, and it's got some pink hands and it's got a white bezel. So I grabbed a scarf that had white, pink, has some yellow in it, and some gray and black. And even though the yellow is not, it's a warm color and the watch has mostly cool colors, it still works because there's a color in there that picks up the watch. So it doesn't have to be like rocket science. Just make sure that it has a color, one color that matches that watch.
Well, and obviously your Omega's way out of the price range that we're talking about.
Correct. But I'm looking right now at a Citizen Eco Drive that has it's a Bulova, and it's the Marine Star, and it has a mother of pearl dial, and they actually make this one, I believe, in a two-tone yellow. So,
and what size is it? Does it say on there?
The Bulova 37 millimeter. So it's a really nice size.
That's a good size.
Yeah. It's pretty.
All right, so
I think a lot of gals
throw a reference number up on the website.
Yeah, I think a lot of gals love the mother of pearl. It's so pretty. It's really feminine, and it's a lot of fun.
And then what brand is that scarf that you were?
The scarf, that scarf is from Black Sheep.
Black Sheep.
So the pink scarf is the Black Sheep brand. The next one I paired a scarf with, it's a turquoise, like a really pale blue with a pattern of gold chain and black and white animal print. And I had my Bulova Swarovski all crystal watch on it, and that's got blue hands, so it picks up the blue in the scarf. So that's the only thing it really, it's white and blue watch with the white, yellow, black, and blue scarf. And I'm going to put all these pictures online too.
So what was the colors on that scarf? Like white, and so they match the watch.
Yeah, so it's white with an animal print.
Oh, I see. Is that one of those Black Sheep ones?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So we'll put the photos up and you can kind of see. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just grab 1 or 2 colors that's in the watch and it'll work. That same pink and grayish black scarf I put on with my pink Timex. That's really bright.
That's cool.
I mean, that Timex is like a $20 watch, and it looks fantastic with this little scarf.
It does. It
it's
looks
totally
really good.
Fun,
and it totally dresses up the watch.
Yeah. And I have the orange version of that as well, and I put that with the Hermes scarf.
That's even cooler.
And that's like the one scarf I have has the horse equestrian print, and it's got the really bright Hermes orange and a bright blue, and the Timex is a orange dial with gold. So there really isn't any gold in that scarf, but it still works.
So here's the really cool thing about that. Even though it's is it Hermes? Hermes. They're not cheap scarves. I think they're like $300.
No, it's 170.
Oh, that's not okay. So 170.
For a scarf, that's a lot for some people.
Maybe, but the watch is $20.
Yeah.
So you're out of there
bundling
for under $200 with a really cool combo.
And the scarf, I don't think there's any girl that would turn away a silk scarf.
I love that combo. That's really cool. Because guys like blue. I think guys like orange a lot too. So that's like just an awesome combo.
Yeah. I have another. I put that same scarf with my Casio gold with the turquoise, and that's I think that's like a $17 watch.
Yeah, that looks great. I think the orange looks even better, but that looks good.
The orange looks good, and then I put that same watch with the gold and the blue, so that's more colors that match.
That's a better match, I think, because you got the gold and the blue that both match the watch.
Right. It's a lot of fun.
And we'll definitely put reference numbers for these watches, guys, so you can look at the photos. We'll put the watch name, the reference, the scarf. We'll give you a link to where you can get the scarf.
And you can get these.
Really cool.
You can get these watches all day long on Amazon.
Yeah, 2-day shipping, sometimes 1 day.
And then I have a black Hermes bracelet, the Kelly. It's a double wrap. But the nice thing about some of these leather bracelets is that they're not going to scratch your watch because the sides are leather. So there are billions and billions of bracelets online.
That's a more expensive combo because you got your moon phase in there, which was $2,600, I think. and then the bracelet. So that's a more
bracelet's about $375.
But if your budget allows it and you really want to get your wife into watches, this one I don't like. I would say that was a good one if your wife already has watches, and because it's a mechanical, it's a moon phase. There's a lot more going on, a lot more to set. Mm-hmm. So that would not be, hey, I want to try to get my wife into watches, because you buy that and she doesn't like it, you're out $2,600.
Right. So to an entry level, and yes, we are a watch podcast and we want to bring watches to people, but if you can have the person enter the watch world like a gateway watch, it doesn't have to be a big fancy expensive watch. You can spend more on the scarf or the bracelet, a nice sterling silver bracelet with a watch, and have it be like, stack them up on your wrist, and stacking is a big trend.
Well, and like that one, you could do, Timex has all kinds of fantastic quartz watches with, slim, like 34 or 36 millimeter, nice white dial with a black leather band.
Oh, yeah.
It would look just as good as that moon phase does without that bracelet.
Oh, absolutely. There's so many watches out there. And there's vintage too on eBay, but you're not going to be able to get that quickly if it's Valentine's Day this week.
Yeah, that's going to be tough.
And then the same scarf, the blue, white, and the gold, I tied it around the handle of my purse. So I carry a black purse, and I have that new white purse, and that's a big trend now too, is scarf artistry on your purses. So
and that's good. And then you drop a watch in there.
Exactly.
Drop a Timex in the bag, right?
Creative packaging.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
And you don't have to spend a lot on a purse. You can get nice handbags anywhere. I think I've seen some really nice bags over at like the Payless Shoe Source.
Oh yeah,
really cute stuff, and they're probably not going to be leather, so it's going to be. If you're worried about using animal hides, you can do that, and it may not last as long, but it's going to be, you can haul it to the beach and not worry about it.
Now, what's that black purse you just showed me?
That is a Dooney & Burke, and that's a brand they sell at Macy's, and that's more of a designer.
What does that run?
I believe that one was like $225,
which is
so
still,
not bad.
We're still way under our $500
and that's
limit.
An outstanding quality leather.
Yeah,
that's a pretty nice big bag. Yeah.
So you get that and a watch and a scarf, still be well under your $500 budget, right? That we've set.
You could even do the Hermes scarf and a purse and a watch and still be under.
Still be under. Yeah. That's awesome. Now you've got another, that white one you just bought. And is that same brand, that Black Sheep?
Yeah.
Brand?
I've been giving them a lot of kudos today.
You had some photos of that one with like your Pulsar. Wasn't it your Pulsar two-tone that kind of looks like a...
Yeah, the Rolex homage.
Yeah.
It looked great with it because the hardware's gold on it.
Yeah, so like a Seiko two-tone quartz, right? Just out of their core line. So the Seiko has their core line, which is, you'll find that at Macy's or JCPenney or whatever mall store.
Yep.
Has Seiko.
Your jewelers in the mall will have a really great selection of ladies quartz watches. And the trend now is the little bit larger. They've got some diamonds in them, but they're usually the eco drive. So it's going to be a hassle-free watch for someone who doesn't want to have to worry about that. And they're going to be a little more feminine. And if your honey likes more, the larger, bulkier watches, get them a dive watch. Get a blue dive watch and get a scarf with some pink and blue in it, and really dress it up, because it totally changes the look of the watch.
She's more like outdoorsy or a scuba diver, or even she just likes to go out in the water or whatever. That would be a good. Now, what brands would you recommend? Like if you have a smaller wrist and you wanted to get a dive watch.
Oh, that's such a tough one. I've only really seen small enough dive watches that are vintage, like the older Seikos and Bulivas.
Yeah.
But Seiko 5, those tend to be smaller. And they do make a few that have like the larger rotating bezel.
Right.
That give you that sort of vintage feel.
So we'll try to do a little searching and try to put at least a couple links for more sportier watches.
Well, and the Invictas are all sporty.
Yeah.
The Invictas are all small.
Invicta was kind of the first one that popped into my mind, because you can get a smaller Invicta, like a 38 millimeter dive watch.
With an NH35 Seiko movement inside of it.
Yeah, that's not crazy. I mean, look, some of the big Invictas, Mike and Kaz
we just listened to them.
And Kaz is actually doing for Two Broke Watch Snobs. He's reviewing two different Invictas. One that's like a serious review on a
Submariner
homage, and then another which is one of those watches that has caused Invicta to get this reputation within the watch collector community. It's just crazy, big, gaudy, ugly cabling around. I mean, it's
with
silly,
lots of little
right?
parts and things.
Now, some people like that, but I think that's what's contributed to the Invicta hate. But anyway, aside from that,
if your honey likes, if there's a cartoon character or something that they love, Invicta has the Disney, all the brands, Betty Boop, Disney.
And a lot of those are quartz, so Mickey. She doesn't have to worry about winding or resetting it or any of that
Snoopy.
garbage.
I have a red Snoopy, a stainless with red bezel and red dial, and that would be adorable with like a red, white, and blue scarf.
Oh, yeah.
Or red and black, red and white.
So you definitely need to take a picture of that one with, so people know.
I mean, it's infinite combos. You could do infinite possibilities with a scarf and a watch, and then even a little bracelet on the side.
But we're guys. We need to have our hands held. You got to show us what to buy. I mean, come on. Let's be honest.
I study color theory, so for me it's easy. But,
so we got to give our listeners like some specific examples.
Yeah, try not to overthink it, but pick a color. So if your watch has a red bezel, pick a scarf that has a little bit of red in it. Doesn't have to be all red or red and black. It can have some really wild things going on, but you just want something to tie it together.
And it'll look good next to the watch on your wrist.
Yeah. You can even use the scarf to tie up the box with a bow. You can make the bow.
That'd be a good idea. See, I wouldn't even think of that. Mm-hmm. That's a good idea.
And I've bought scarves for years, big ones, like big silk ones that you wear around your neck or shoulders. But lately I've just had so much fun with these little 2-inch wide, almost like a necktie. Mm-hmm. It's just a long, heck, I could make one on my sewing machine. But for now, Black Sheep, you could probably look on Amazon and look up a 2-inch wide scarf. Or if you really want to go for it, go to your Hermes boutique and pick. They have so many combos. I couldn't even pick when I chose one. It was so hard to pick.
That whole box out, and it's like, oh my
it's
gosh,
like they're all like works of art, and even the affordable ones that are not their brand are so much fun.
Yeah,
a lot of people are making these little tiny twilly style scarves out of their existing scarves. They're cutting 4-inch strips and sewing them together. So it's definitely, it's not a new thing, but I've seen a lot of it coming up for spring, and I'm seeing them tied on handbags.
And they're small. This isn't like the scarf that you traditionally think of that hangs over your neck. It's got like 4 feet on either side, and you wrap it around. These are little tiny things. They're
2 inches wide and 32 inches long.
It's almost like when you tie it around your neck, it's almost a little bow tie, right?
They're super cute. And I think it's really age appropriate for anybody. Because like I said, I'm 50. I'm not, I'm getting to where I'm not, I have to be really careful with trends because it's not age appropriate and I look like I'm trying to act too young. And this style works for me, and I see it on younger girls, and I think it's a really timeless style, and it's so versatile. You can do anything with it. Wrist, neck, headband, belt. Although I don't know that I'm small enough to wear it as a belt, but I'm sure some of you out there are. But yeah, I mean, most of what I do around here is involves dirt and animals, so I don't wear a scarf and a nice watch outside when I'm mucking
these are when
poop
you're
out of a stall. But but even just going to the store, grab a white T-shirt and a pair of jeans, and you don't have to do much if you've got this watch and the scarf and a purse. You can do all your accessorizing with that, and then just wear your same skinny jeans and a black T-shirt or a white T-shirt. I mean, it makes it so easy to get dressed.
Right.
So it's just kind of things I've discovered as I've gotten older to kind of try to make my life simpler.
Yeah.
So, but I've got lots of photos. We can put a bunch of a collage online. And
yeah. So guys, if you listen to the podcast on iTunes or Spotify or whatever other platform, like most people do, and you don't listen to it on the website, you'll definitely, when you get to where you're going or in the evening after you've had a chance to listen to the podcast, go to the website. And the first post that you'll see will be this episode. Click on that, and then we're going to have a ton of photos, reference numbers, model names for your purses and stuff. It'll all be there. Girl is going to give us, photos of all the stuff together, and we'll give you all the info. And if you see a combo you like, then you're going to have everything you need right there to go order. We'll give you links and all that stuff.
So just to recap, don't overthink it. Keep it simple. Yeah. Start with the watch. From there, if you want to pick out a handbag, do monochromatic, one color. And hopefully the metal hardware on the purse matches the watch. So if you get a rose gold watch, don't get a yellow gold hardware zippers on the purse. So just kind of try to match it. And then the scarf, keep those simple. The scarf can be wild, one color that matches either of them.
Yeah.
And then you can put that scarf on anything, your hand, your head, the purse, your wrist.
Cool.
So I think it's a great combo. And so much fun because it's more than one thing. It's kind of like, oh, a watch. I love the watch, but look at all these other things that match, and it kind of, I think it's fun.
But yeah, I think being able to put the watch inside a handbag or something,
very clever.
I think that's all good stuff. Cool. All right. Well, should we? Is that it? Is that what you wanted to talk about on the?
That's pretty much it.
Okay. I was going to get a list together for guys on Valentine's Day, but I think we still have a majority of guy listeners. So if you're one of our female listeners and you want some ideas, just DM me. Give us a DM over Instagram or email us at admin@loveandwatches, or you can even email me direct at ranchracer@loveandwatches. And I can try to help you out based on what your hubby likes. And
one thing that I discovered was last year I got you your Pepsi turtle, Seiko. And I think that's probably, when I see guys posting on Instagram, I think that's pretty much a universal win, is the Pepsi.
Yeah, any Seiko dive watch is
the Pepsi, and the Patty. And the Patty's a little smaller. So if, isn't the case it's just slightly smaller?
No, it depends. There's different versions of the Patty, but the Patty turtle is going to be the same size as any turtle case.
Right. But there's one that's a Patty that's different. And it's a little bit smaller.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Because
I remember you didn't want the
and
Patty.
The Seiko 5.
You wanted the larger.
Well, because the Patty is more of a blue dial, and I like the black dial with the Pepsi bezel. Whereas the Patty gives you that light blue dial or the darker blue dial. So anyway, I think a Seiko diver is a win for any guy. But like I said, if you're one of our female listeners and you want some ideas, definitely just DM me and I can certainly help out. I can give you links to Amazon and all that good stuff. So yeah, cool.
And I'm seeing a lot of great sales at Macy's right now.
Oh yeah, of course, all the Valentine's Day sales.
I don't mean to be plugging. I'm not trying to plug, but I'm telling you, they have a great selection on watches.
Yeah, they do. They actually do have a really good selection.
And I think there's a Macy's in just about every major city, so
you
can't go wrong. And they do have a lot of the ladies' bulavas, and they have a lot of bulavas down at our local jeweler in the mall too. Our AD.
Yep.
So check out your local guys, and I think unless your wife's a collector also, start with the really pretty quartz and get something that's really easy that they don't have to wind and fuss with, because that'll make you not want to use it if you have to deal with that.
Sure. Okay.
So
should we, should we talk about water resistance?
Sure. Let's talk about water resistance.
Okay. So water resistance has come a long way just in the last 20 to 30 years. And I love this table that you found, which is out of the...
We should give credit to... who is it?
Well, this was out of the main article for ISO, right? The 6425 standard?
Yes.
The table that you got? Yeah. So the International Standards Organization developed something, a standard called 6425. Now, before that happened, I think that was like late 90s, early 2000s. But before that happened, there wasn't really anything that was officially a dive watch. Even though Rolex and Blancpain and Omega, they were making dive watches years and years and years ago, right?
You had that Casio you dove into, that little... that one.
Yeah, this is the one that I grabbed.
He's holding it, fellas.
Like in the late... I want to say it was like early 90s. Yeah, it was like early to mid 90s. I got my scuba certification. And back then there wasn't any... there was no official dive watches, right? There weren't nothing in terms of a certification. There were no dive computers, or they were just coming out and they were massively expensive. So we had
What's a dive computer?
Dive computer basically tells you, it keeps track of your depth. It tells you how long you can stay, if you have to decompress.
Do you wear it, or is it a box?
Yeah, it's a box that's on the rest of your octopus gear, which comes out of your tank, right? So it tells you your air. It keeps
I'm not a
track of
diver,
everything.
folks. I'm a snorkeler. So
traditionally, when you went scuba diving, you had to have, so your gauges told you how much air you had in your tank and how deep you were. And that's really about it. That's all your gauges told you. Maybe they had water temp, but there wasn't a whole lot that you got off your gauges. So we had something called dive tables, and basically you would look at, okay, how far do we plan on diving? And you'd have to plan this all out in advance. And you had a little tablet with a marker that worked underwater, and basically
real math, huh?
Yeah. And so you'd use your dive tables and you'd say, okay, we want to go down to this depth. How long can we stay at that depth before we get to a point where we need to decompress? We need to do what's called a decompression stop. So
is that so you don't get the bends?
Yeah. So as the nitrogen is coming out of is outgassing, you need to give it time to get out of your bloodstream, because if you
when you're descending,
when you're coming up.
Oh, right.
If you come up too fast and that nitrogen
you get sick.
Quickly expands, you get air bubbles that expand in your arteries, and it gives you something called the bends. So
and it can kill you.
Very, very painful. It can kill you. So basically where I'm going with this is it was massively important that you had something to tell time underwater, right? Because you needed to know.
Just elapsed time?
Okay, we've been down here for X amount of minutes. And I know I can only stay down here for, an hour and 5 minutes.
Based on how much oxygen's in your tank? Okay.
Based on oxygen and based on how much nitrogen your body is absorbing.
And how much time it's going to take you to go back up to the surface. You have to factor that in as well.
Yeah.
Slowly.
Yeah. So you needed to have a watch that kept track of how long you were underneath. So manufacturers have been making water resistant watches for years. The watch that when I was diving, I bought probably one of the most prolific Casios ever produced, which is it's the AMW-320R. You've probably seen them on Instagram if you're a watch person. It's that kind of like sun ray yellow.
It's champagne
color.
dial. It's beautiful.
Yeah, champagne and
black bezel.
It's got a black bezel with gold markings. Okay, the bezel turns in both directions.
Now I thought one direction was what you wanted for a dive.
You do, and we'll talk about that. But this is before the standard. There was no ISO standard when I was diving. So again, I think the ISO standard was like late 90s, early 2000s, because it didn't really exist. So you bought what was out there, right? So the bezel allows you to turn it so you match it up with the minute hand. Mm-hmm. And then as the minute hand tracks, you're tracking your dive time, right? Now, what happens if I accidentally bump this up against a rock or something and it turns to the right?
You've just messed up your time.
I've just messed up my time. I've now shortened my time, right? So now basically, if I don't know how much it rotated, I'm going to have to go up. You got to go up right now, okay? So one of the things that the ISO standard did is it said, okay, it's going to have a bezel that rotates only to the left.
What if you bump it and it does rotate it?
Well, if you bump it to the left,
you're increasing your time.
You've decreased your time. So that just means that you're not going to get as much time underwater as you had hoped when it gets to your number, right? Right. But you're not going to add any time by going to the right. That's the most important
time that
part.
You don't have borrowed.
You're adding time you don't have, right? So one of the first things that the ISO standard said was it has to be, and we're not just talking dive watches. We're going to get into water resistance, but this is kind of where all these ratings came from. So the bezel can only turn to the left, right? And then there's some other stuff with the standard, like you have to be able to see that the watch is running, which means normally if it's a mechanical watch, you got to have a seconds hand that's actually moving, so you know the watch hasn't failed. It hasn't stopped running.
Like the watch I'm wearing right now does not have a second hand.
Correct. And there's no way you actually know if that's working unless you look at it and then 5 minutes later look at it again, make sure the minute hand's moving. But when you go down at depth and the light decreases, it can be hard to see the watch. So you need to be able to see the watch. Well, the most standard way of doing that is you put luminescent material on it so you can still see it in the dark, right? So those were some of the things that you had to have with the ISO standard. But more importantly, they developed kind of a chart that talks about how much water resistance a watch has, or what it's rated at, and then what that means in terms of what it's suitable for. So you're going to see water resistance spelled out. It could be in three different ways. It could be, you might see something rated as a bar or as an atmosphere, and bar and atmosphere are similar. Or you may see it rated in meters, possibly feet as well. Usually if it's measured or rated in feet, it will also be rated in meters. So how does this equate to looking at these ratings? So if it's rated in atmosphere or bar, add a 0 to it, and that's your meters. Okay.
So 30 bar.
So if it's a 3 bar or 3 atmosphere rated watch, add a 0. That's good
30
for 30 meters. That gives you your meters.
Got it.
To get your feet, I just multiply by 3, so that's like 90 feet. It's actually 3.281 is the actual number to get your feet, but rough numbers, multiply by 3, and there's your feet. So most dress watches, if they're water resistant, they're going to be resistant to about 3 atmospheres or 30 meters. Now, where the confusion comes in is that's static pressure, meaning if you put that watch in a chamber of water, pressurize it to 30 bar, right? That watch can stand it. But if you're, if you're like in a swimming pool, or let's say you jump into a swimming pool. Cannonball, whatever. The watch hits the surface really hard.
Like you jumped off the top of like a boat or something.
Yeah. Even if it's just going a foot or two under the water after you hit, it absorbed a lot of pressure, right? It could have absorbed a lot more than 50 meters worth, or 3 bars. That's why you'll see it measured in pressure, which is bars or atmospheres. It may have absorbed more. If it hits the water at 12 atmospheres or higher, you're probably going to get water penetration. So it's not just about, it can withstand 30 meters, so I'm going to go in my pool with it. Don't think about it that way. Even just moving your hand quickly underneath the water is exerting pressure on that's over and above the static pressure at, say, 12 inches underwater, right? So you could have your arm 12 inches underwater and move it, if you're left-handed, move it really fast to the left with the watch leading the charge, right? Mm-hmm. You're absorbing a lot more than 30 atmospheres in that case. You could be absorbing enough to actually force water through those seals, because it's all about how the watch is sealed. So if you see a watch that's rated at 3 atmospheres or 30 meters, that's like, if it gets splashed in the rain, it's going to be okay. But not a good idea to go in the swimming pool with it, or in the ocean or anything like that. I wouldn't even shower with that.
I used to shower in all my little Casios when I was like in high school, college.
Yeah, I did too. I
never had any issues.
Showered with a watch. But it's important to note that there is the potential for water to get in there if it experiences more pressure than it's rated at.
Right. So doing dishes is about
dishes is probably fine.
As wild as you want to get.
Yeah. I wouldn't, especially if you have like a really strong shower head and it hits it at the right angle and goes right into the crown tube. Or if you live in
Germany and have great water pressure.
Right. But so that's basically, I wouldn't even wear it like fishing, because if you're reaching under the water to grab a fish off the line or whatever, don't do it. That's a watch that shouldn't get wet unless it just gets little, splashes of water droplets on it in the rain or something, or washing dishes. I probably wouldn't even wash dishes. There's a chance you get it under the water flow, the direct pressure, and then it could get in there. So,
well, and it's likely that your dress watches have a leather band, and no one wants to get your crocodile or whatever, your nice band that you don't want to get wet. And would it be also safe to say, I know this is kind of silly, but if it doesn't have lume on any part of the dial, is it probably not something that is rated for? Is that just a coincidence?
In general, yes, you would be correct.
Because most dress watches don't have lume.
But I've seen dress watches rated at 100 meters. And you could totally go swimming in that. It's just, you're not going to use it at night when you can't see. And you wouldn't scuba dive with it because you're not going to see it at depth. But it doesn't need lume to use it in the pool in bright daylight, right? So lume is a good thing to look at, but it's not necessarily an indicator of what you can do with the watch. So
it could be coincidental.
Yeah, exactly. So stepping up from 3 bars or atmospheres to 5 bars or atmospheres or 50 meters which is about 150 feet. You could definitely go swimming in that. Water related fun activities, like if you want to go whitewater rafting or, somewhere where you're potentially falling in the water or dunking your hand in the water, you're going to be okay with a 50 or 5 atmosphere
it says
watch.
non-snorkeling water related, but I've snorkeled and it's not a wild sport.
No, but like if you snorkel down to, excuse me, like, if you dive to 15 feet,
if you're
and
free
you're
diving
moving
down,
you're moving your hand really hard, you could exceed that 5 atmosphere.
Yeah.
That's why they tell you not to do that.
I don't snorkel like that. Some people do, but I sort of bob around like a cork on top of the water. So if you know your limitations, then maybe you are okay with that.
Yeah, possibly. So from 5 atmosphere, you go to 10 atmosphere. That's probably the most common water resistance number that you're going to see in the watch world is 10 atmospheres, which equates to 100 meters or 300 feet. Mm-hmm. So now you're getting to some pretty serious depths, right? When it comes to ISO, it's not suitable for diving because the minimum requirement for the ISO 6425 standard is 20 atmospheres or 200 meters. So technically 100, you're not going to be able to dive with a 100 meter watch. You can swim in it. You can snorkel in it. You can, any water sport you can think of, really, you could wear a 100 meter or 10 atmosphere watch. Now, excuse me, having said that, if you have a watch that you just love, that's lubed up great, and it's rated down to 100 meters, if you scuba dive with it and you've got your normal dive computer and your backup dive computer or whatever, go ahead. You're probably not going to do any damage because usually the maximum depth for recreational diving is 100 feet. It's not very deep, right? That's like 30 meters, a little over 30 meters.
So it's rated further than most people go.
It's rated further in depth, but ISO, when they did the standard, they said 200 is max.
This is a 300 meter watch I'm holding right now, and it's a Invicta with a NH35 movement. So
yep.
That's a 300 meter watch. This is the one I swim in all summer.
Yeah. Does it say diver on the dial?
It says it's got a little diver helmet. Mm-hmm. It says 1,000 feet, 300 meters, water resistant. On the side, it says Grand Diver, and that really large text that Kaz was joking about. It's like,
I don't like it either.
It's like kind of overkill on that one. I don't think they needed to do that. It's actually a really pretty watch.
So this is a great example. Let's talk about that. So that is easily rated for the minimum ISO rating. It's got a unidirectional bezel. It's got
nice bezel.
So you can see it at night. You know it's working. You can see it at depth, but very likely that's not ISO rated. The only reason I say that is if you see a watch that says diver on the dial, a manufacturer is not allowed to put the word diver or diving watch or dive watch on the dial unless they have put it through the battery of tests that is specified for the ISO 6425 certification. So a lot of watches that you buy that are marketed as dive watches, they will be just fine for diving. They may not have the ISO certification because they didn't go through all the testing for it, but it's still going to be fine for diving. So that's an important thing to note, is that you could totally dive with that watch. Even though it's not ISO 6425 certified, it doesn't say diver on the dial, you could still totally scuba dive with it.
Wow.
So we talked about 100 meter, 200 meter or 20 atmosphere, 20 bar. That's where you're going to get they say it's suitable for diving because it meets the minimum ISO requirement. So you could do it for any kind of diving, serious water sports, anything like that.
Well, this one has an exhibition back, which I don't know is really good for diving. Isn't that something that they normally don't put on you won't find a Rolex or a Pepsi Seiko dive watch with a exhibition back, because doesn't that structurally compromise the water tightness?
It would, yeah. So I don't know.
This is all really basic stuff because we have some listeners that have asked us.
I don't know if you can get ISO certification with a sapphire case back. I don't know. My guess is no, but you might be able to, because all you have to do is pass the tests. Generally, an ISO certified watch is going to have a solid case back because that's just one more spot where it could leak, right? Because that crystal has to be sealed against whatever mechanism screws onto the back. Now you might see something that is certified as a diver's 100 meter. This was would be an older dive watch that back in the day it met the original ISO standard, but in general think 200 meter as the ISO standard. Now, once you get into watches like 300 meter or 30 atmosphere, you see a lot of dive watches rated at that. PG, you've got your Invicta there, which is rated at 300 meters. You can use that for any kind of diving. Sometimes you'll see watches that have something like either a flush, like little button on the side of the case, or another crown located somewhere on the edge of the case. And it's what's called a helium release valve. And I think we've talked about this on the podcast before, but basically it's, unless you are what's called a saturation diver, you will never need a helium release valve. It's cool, and guys like it because they can say, yeah, this is rated at 300 meters. I can release the helium when I come up. Well, you don't, unless you're a saturation diver, you will never, ever, ever need it. What it's used for is for divers that are working down at very deep ocean depths for long extended periods of time, which means they're not coming up to the surface every day. So they go down and they live in a pressurized chamber in the evening, right? So they come into this chamber, they take off their gear, they sleep, they eat, all that stuff. Well, and that chamber is pressurized at that working depth. So they can just go get their gear on, drop right down into the water, and they're already at that specified pressure, whatever depth. If they're working at, 300 feet down, then they're going to be 10 atmospheres of pressure. Well, what happens is at those depths, when they're in their dry area and their sleeping area and stuff, right? At that kind of pressure, really small molecules can get into the watch. Helium is a really small molecule at that depth.
Low molecular weight?
Yeah, so it can actually squeeze past seals and stuff. Now, it's not going to hurt anything. It's just air, right? It's a gas. So it's not going to hurt anything. But what was happening back in the day before they came up with the helium release valve is when these divers would go through their... they basically get into a chamber that slowly brings them up to surface pressures, right? Which is light pressure. Well, what was happening in those watches is those little tiny helium molecules that snuck into the watch when they were in their living environment down there, they would expand and put so much pressure on the inside of the watch that the crystals would pop. Right. So they came up with a helium release valve. Some of them are manual, some of them are automatic, but as the divers sit in their chamber where they are very slowly brought back up to surface pressures, or I should say brought back down to surface pressures, they have a way to release those helium molecules out of the watch so that it doesn't put pressure and bust the crystals. So that's, if you see something with a helium, 300 meter, or you'll even see, 600 meter, 1,000 meter for like the Rolex Deep Sea, all those kinds of watches. They're going to have helium release valves. That's all that is.
And I just pulled this up on the internet, and it is correct that helium has a really low molecular weight. So that college chemistry is coming back.
Yeah, no, it's a small molecule, right? It's lightweight, so it can sneak past those seals when you are in a dry environment down at depth and you're pressurized. So
there's more helium in the air at depth than there is up at sea level?
Not more. It's just that it's a small molecule, and at depth it gets squeezed even smaller, and it gets squeezed small enough that it can sneak past your seals. Up at normal, at 0 atmosphere, right? So at sea level pressure, it's not 0 atmosphere because we have the pressure of the atmosphere on us, but at sea level atmosphere or sea level pressure, helium molecules are too big, I think. Actually,
you have more pressure under the
water.
They
might still sneak in, but in any case, at depth, when they do sneak in, and then when those helium, when they expand at lower pressure, right, to their normal sea level size or weight, as you ascend, then that's when it pops the crystal.
So the molecular weight changes?
Sure, because they're being squeezed at the lower pressures. They're being squeezed and they get smaller, right? They're being condensed really tightly, and then when you release the pressure on them and they start to relax, those molecules get bigger. And if you have a lot of helium molecules in your watch, and those are all growing and they have no place to go,
it pops.
Boop.
So if we're wrong, someone please correct us. But if not, then we just had a little college chemistry.
Yeah. So that was a long explanation for what a helium release valve is. So you might see those on a, 300 meter plus, like the Omega Seamaster 300. It's got this, which in my opinion is a big, ugly crown that comes out at 10 o'clock or 10:30 or whatever, 11 o'clock.
But it serves a purpose.
It serves a purpose. I think it's ugly, and I'm not a saturation diver. I don't need it, so I don't like them. That's just my own personal opinion. A lot of guys think it's super cool to have them. Nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't, it's not going to do anything for you. It's not going to serve, quote unquote, a purpose unless you're actually saturation diving. Now, there are some saturation divers out there, and they're going to use a watch. They want a backup, right, to all their gear. At the end of the day, if that watch is still running and all your gear fails, your fancy computers, you can still time your dive.
Right. Now, on the other hand, if you're in an airplane and you're up above sea level at 40,000 feet, how does that affect a watch? Because I spent my entire life in an airplane. I came out of the womb with a boarding pass in my hand. So
it's not going to affect it. You can wear a watch in an airplane all day long.
Unpressurized. What if you depressurize the aircraft? Does it matter?
No, because the aircraft's never going to be pressurized more than sea level, right? They don't even pressure them to sea level. The aircraft
pressurize them at about 5,000 feet.
Yeah, so which is less pressure than at sea level. So your watch has less pressure on it up there, so it doesn't affect it. If you talk about putting a watch in a vacuum, that may start to have an effect on it. But when you're just flying,
like space. Okay.
Yeah, which is why like Omega and their competitors had to pass all these rigorous tests before NASA accepted them. But yeah, for flying,
we digress.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, you can wear whatever watch you want when
just
you go flying.
Just something that I've done a lot of and just curious.
Yep. No, it's a good question. So I think we pretty much killed the topic of water resistance. So just to recap, if you want to go swimming, some light swimming.
Or a bath.
Light swimming, 5 atmosphere, 50 meter. Right. Anything below that, I wouldn't chance it. At 100 meters or 10 atmospheres, you're completely safe to do any kind of swimming, water, recreational activities. You could dive with it if you wanted to. It's probably going to be fine. But that's kind of, 50 meters is the minimum if you really want to go swimming or do water sports. I would never recommend doing it with 3. That's just to make sure that if it gets splashed, you're not going to get water ingress into the case. So that's it for water resistance. If you guys have more questions on that, definitely feel free to reach out to us, but you probably don't need us. You can just search on it and you'll find so much material out there on the internet that explains watch water resistance. Because like I said, it's been covered ad nauseum for many, many years.
Just nice to talk about it because I've had friends ask me.
No, we've had a lot of listeners ask. And, if you'll read stuff that says, I wouldn't, people say don't swim with it unless it's 300 meter dive watch. That's bogus. Completely bogus and ridiculous. If it's got a 100 meter rating, I guarantee you, if it hasn't been opened, that's the other thing that we should mention.
Oh, right.
You have to get your watch serviced. Okay. 99% of the time when you have it serviced, when they put that case back on, they might do a static air test on it, which is basically they just stick it in this little chamber and they crank up the air pressure. And that's it. They're not going to sink it in water to test that case anymore. So once that's happened, the only way to absolutely be sure is to have it water pressure tested in a special container. They're very expensive, these tools. If your watchmaker doesn't have it and you're using it as a dive watch, tell them to send it somewhere that can do that. Usually the manufacturer will be able to do that, but it's important that once that case back's been opened, you've now compromised your water resistance. It has to be retested to factory specs to make sure that you can dive with it again. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And that goes even for, for watches that you don't swim or dive with, because you've had your friends give you watches
my
for
girlfriend.
Me to replace batteries in, and I'll pop the case back off and there's no rubber seal.
Right.
I mean,
it'll break and they won't replace it, or who knows.
You can take your watch pretty much anywhere that carries watch batteries and they'll replace it for you, like drugstores and stuff. They're normally not experienced watch people. And if they pop the case back and maybe the old seal tears or breaks, a lot of times they'll just pop that case back on the watch with no seal. And if you get anywhere near water, even splashing while you're doing dishes, you're going to ruin the watch.
It's going to go right in.
It's going to go right into the watch.
And it'll corrode.
Make sure you're at least taking it to a reputable place. Ask them if they put a new seal in, because most places should always put a brand new seal in. Like, I've got this huge selection, and if someone gives me a watch to do the battery, I always put a new case back seal every single time, because the old seal has been compressed. It's now been exposed to air. If you use that old seal again, you should not be anywhere near water. So if someone says, well, we didn't put a new seal in, we kept the old seal, I wouldn't get it anywhere near water, because that seal's been compromised.
They degrade, just like hoses in your car. It's watches are like cars.
Yep, you
wouldn't leave the same
it.
fan belt in your car, the whole life of your car.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So if you have a watch that you use regularly for water activity, make sure it gets retested to. And most watchmakers have something that they can test to 10 bar. So as long as you're not diving with it, if they can dry test it to 10 bar. Even if the watch originally was rated at 300 meters, if you're not going to go diving in it, then, as long as it's retested to 10 atmospheres or 100 meters, you're fine. If you do want to go diving with it, it needs to be sent somewhere that can do a full factory pressure test back to the original rated factory spec.
It's a lot of info.
It is a lot of info. But we did want to talk about it.
You're good at detail.
And
I'm the artsy person. You're the engineer.
And there's just a lot of opinion out there about water resistance, but at the end of the day, listen less to the opinion and more to look
Logic.
at the ISO standard. Those are standards that have been certified for testing. So if some quote unquote watch expert says don't ever go swimming in a swimming pool with something that's only rated at 100 meters, smile and say, okay, thanks for the advice. Mm-hmm. And then go do your own research. Look at the ISO table, right? If ISO specs say 100 meters, you're totally fine going swimming or doing water sports or snorkeling. You're fine. As long as it's new and sealed, right?
And it's less about that and more about the movement. I mean, whipping your hand around or playing tennis with a watch on or really jarring, that's going to do a lot of damage to your watch, I think.
Well, you absolutely can. I mean, dropping it on a table, you could do a lot more damage.
Well, just some of the things I see people doing with their watches these days with sports and,
Yeah, and newer mechanical watches have, some really good shock absorbers in them for the balance and that kind of stuff. And they can put up with some of that. But, if you're a watch collector and you're collecting mechanical watches, be gentle with them. Don't do any unnecessary heavy strong movements with them. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Even if it doesn't break it, it could screw up the timing on it
or wear it down. Shorten your green time between your maintenance intervals.
Just treat them with the respect that they deserve. So maybe let's close it off with what we'd both like to see in 2019. How about that?
Well, right before we do that, I just wanted to mention, coincidentally, I had pulled out my Invicta abalone dial blue 300 meter watch.
Grand Diver,
it's got like a matte, like a gray blue bezel and an abalone dial, and it's got some diamonds on the indices. I think one of our listeners, Vinny, he has the guy's version of this, the large one, but I'm just putting it next to this little pink and gray and yellow scarf, and it even looks good with that.
It does, yeah.
It's so pretty.
Take a picture so we can include it.
And and this is a 30. Is that a 37 or 38? I'd have to look, but
it's a 38.
It's called the women's Grand Diver. So, this was under $100.
And it's got a mechanical movement in it, so
it's got really the cool. NH35 Seiko movement in it. Exhibition back. Sapphire crystal.
Actually, that's probably mineral crystal. Probably the front and back are both mineral. That's not going to be a sapphire for $80.
I think it says sapphire on the back.
Does it really? If it does, man, then Invictus is such a price.
I might be wrong.
It's crazy.
There's a budget for everybody, and I know a lot of people just have the hate for Invicta, but if you can't afford more, there's nothing wrong with that. This is where we started out with, we were on a budget, and
I don't see, are
you not seeing sapphire?
My vision's pretty bad, but I'm not seeing sapphire on here, so it's probably mineral crystal.
Some of them might be, but
some of the more expensive ones probably have sapphire. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about 2019.
I put that on our little notes, huh?
Yeah, and I actually really like your notes here are pretty similar to mine in terms of sizing, case sizing, is we're seeing We have started to see
Basil's
a
coming.
trend downward. Basil's coming at the end of March. We're kind of in that slow period right now.
We were complaining about that last year, like when I was really getting into, getting my thoughts out about women and watches and saying that why don't they make them a little smaller? Because we've got guys in our Red Bar group they're not big men, and they love that 38 millimeter
or smaller.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's the trend we're seeing. So we went through a period like in the 90s and 2000s where bigger was better, right? Big, blingy 46, 47 millimeter watches.
Like your Precisionist.
Yeah, but the trend is definitely coming back down to reasonable sizes. I don't know if probably won't go back to like the 32 and 34 millimeter sizes of the 50s and 60s, but 38 to 42 for me, that's like a sweet spot, because like my Rolex Oyster Perpetual is 39. It's wonderful size on my 7.5 inch wrist.
My Explorer, my vintage, is about 36.
Yep.
That is a perfect size. It's such a...
Too small for me, but great size for you.
Yeah, but I would love to see Rolex do a Submariner in a 37 or a 38. Because you're totally in love and on a honeymoon with our sub.
Right.
It's just it just feels too big. It's so heavy, and it makes me so sad because it's a gorgeous watch. But when I look at it on my wrist compared to yours, it looks so small on you and thin. And on me, it just looks like I'm wearing my daddy's watch.
And that's just a case difference. It's still a 40 millimeter, but with the maxi case, it's wide lugs.
Our bluesy looks totally different on me.
Yeah. Hey, dog, lay down. Come on. Get in here and lay down.
The dog
lay
wants
down
to
on your
play.
bed. She's going crazy. She's getting hungry.
Good girl. Good girl.
So, but even more than Rolex, I mean, yeah, I'd like to see them go smaller, because the original sub was like 36 or 37 millimeter, I think. But
well, that's the thing, is they used to make smaller watches.
I want to say to all the micro brand owners out there,
thank you.
There is a market for smaller watches. So I would love to see like a range of dive watches from a micro in 36 to 40 millimeter. Cap it at 40, but there are some women and some men with really small wrists that really struggle. We've had some listeners that are just really struggling to find they want a dive watch, but they can't find one that doesn't look just crazy big on their wrist.
Some are doing two sizes, like the Alexander Venacci, which we're waiting for. That's supposed to
But that's not a dive watch.
Correct. It's not a dive watch, but they offer one women's size and a men's size.
Yep.
I don't think that's necessary. I think if you find one sweet spot in between, unisex, I think that's going to be good, because female collectors, we want the guys' watches, but in a little bit smaller size. We don't want diamonds on it. We don't want it pink. We don't want,
Yeah, I still like.
We want the same watch. I still
like to see the option there.
Like this diver.
Like if there was a dive watch that came out in 38 millimeter, that'd be tough for me. At a 7.5 inch wrist.
Well, what about 39?
It might look a little small.
What about 39?
I'd wear a 39, but then we have listeners with like 5 3/4 inch wrists. There's no way they could pull off a 39 millimeter diver. So they need something more like 36, which is even going to look big, but it'll look like a big diver on their wrist.
So again, it'll be probably catered to the men. And I don't want to sound like an angry female.
No, that's what I'm saying.
It is going to be catered towards the men. It will go larger.
I want to see these brands catering more to everybody, including women that have smaller wrists. That's why I think a dive watch that came out that had like a 36 and a 39, or a 36 and a 40. So a little bit more gap, right? Because a lot of times you'll see a 38 and a 40.
Yeah, it's too close.
That's too close. Get them a little further apart. Probably not. You're not going to want to make as many of the smaller one, because you're going to have more people that are going to want like a 40 or a 38. But I just want to see more of that downsizing continue to happen, and not just at the big brands, but at the micros too. I think there's a lot. If I was going to go in and be a micro brand today, I'd offer some smaller offerings, because it's not just for smaller wrists. People just in general, watch collectors are looking for smaller watches most of the time now. So that's personally what I want to see.
There's always going to be the market for women wanting a very feminine, beautiful diamondy watch. I have them. I have that Bulova crystal that was under 300. I tried on that Rain de Naples, the Breguet. I mean, that's not a man's watch. That's a women's watch. So I don't think that women just want dive watches. I mean, we like it all.
Well, no, not at all.
Collectors tend to want to get a little bit of everything, which includes the men's watches, but in a smaller size. But we still want the pretty stuff. So I'm not saying that we don't want women's watches. We still want women's watches. But we also want to be able to wear styles that are traditionally male, but are just a little bit smaller size,
and
because we really like the size.
That's
Correct.
what's missing from the market. And that's why I want to see these brands offering more of those styles that were traditionally men only in smaller sizes. I think it's only going to benefit them. It's going to benefit their female collectors, their collectors that have smaller wrists, and it's just where the market's going. But I think, you hit the nail on the head, is that a female watch collector may not just want blingy diamond watches. She may want watches that us as guys are buying, but they're too big for her wrist. Mm-hmm. So I want to see that continue. The other thing that I want to see is I want to see more innovation from the big brands. And I've commented
if it's not broke, don't fix it.
No, I completely disagree with that, because I think the mechanical watch market, even though, the numbers come out, they were better than 2017. Yeah, but 2017 numbers sucked. So
2018, we blew it out. So here's the thing. Our economy is doing really well. So how does that affect it?
Well, I think it's a separate subject. I think my point is, like, something that really bugged me, and I know all the Omega fan people out there are going to hate me for this, but I think the re-release of the 321 movement is ridiculous, because it's a 50 or 60-year-old movement. They're not making any improvement. They've already said they're really not making any improvements to it. So I don't know what they did spending 2 years redeveloping it. I'm not exactly sure what they did if they didn't make any improvements to it. And it's going to be, we all already know, and if I'm wrong, I'll eat my words, but it's pretty much the writing's on the wall. This thing is going to be used in high-end limited pieces. So
as a collector piece,
yeah.
basically.
So it's like, well, as Omega, we're going to give you the opportunity to buy really old technology, and we're going to charge you $15,000 or $20,000 for it. That drives me nuts. What I think Omega should have done is come out with a brand new movement from the ground up, which to me would take a couple years to develop, not re-releasing an ancient 60-year-old movement. Come out with a new column wheel chronograph movement.
The coax,
that's
you mean?
Nice and thin, doesn't have to be coax, but come out with something new technology, new materials, a new way of doing something. And then if you want to charge for it to make up for the R&D, that's fine. But the whole reissue thing has gotten out of control, and now we're doing it with movements. And,
is it the vintage fever?
Yeah, and it's like, do a new one and call it the 1321, right? So maybe it's got the same basis as the 321, but it's redesigned from the ground up with new technologies and new materials. And don't call it the 321. That kind of stuff bugs me. I really want to see more innovation from these guys. So like something I would love to see from Zenith, and I'm sure we're not going to see it.
Oh,
but
Zenith. I
would love to see that new Defy Lab movement, the silicon movement, where basically the entire movement vibrates. There's no traditional escapement. I'd love to see that in a 21st century El Primero case and dial watch. I think that would be awesome.
We got to see that El Primero in Vegas. Beautiful.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to see that movement in like tags and some other stuff. I don't know if we're going to see it because this year is the 50th anniversary for the El Primero movement. Mm-hmm. So come out with a new El Primero 2 that's based on the Defy Lab. And, that's the kind of stuff I personally want to see. Again, this is all just opinion, but to me, if the watch community, the watch manufacturers, if they want to survive, they need to innovate. They need to get people excited about watches again. I love the traditional stuff, but if I want a vintage watch, I'll go buy a vintage watch. I don't want to spend $50,000 on something that has a 60-year-old movement, just because it's the same movement with the same number. I think it's silly.
And there's schools of thought of, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Go back to what was good, or innovate. Like when we met with the Hublot guys, the AD there, he was so proud of them that they innovate and they change and they do different things. And I think that's great.
Oh, totally. And regardless of what you think about the Hublot as a brand in terms of aesthetics, boy, they're very diverse. Innovate like crazy. Like that new red ceramic they're the first ones that have been able to do that.
The ladies' really watch that I tried on, I really liked it. And it was...
Yeah, it looked stainless steel, but it was
a little
titanium.
more masculine than a ladies' watch. And I think a collector would absolutely...
Totally.
And I just think people pass them up because they just hear this opinionated, right away they get this bad
They've already set their opinion based on the opinions of others in today's crazy world,
which is all about social media. So you have to do what you like, and
don't follow the crowd. Do what you like. Buy what you like. Don't don't hate something just because there's a culture of hate for that specific thing. I mean, it just drives me crazy. I mean, I think Hublot makes some cool watches, you know, and Maciek, our Red Bar Sacramento
who we
leader,
had on as a guest.
He and I will argue about
episode.
that all day long because he does not like Hublot, and
he don't like
that's
them.
fine. I respect everyone's opinion, but at the same time, there may be some neat offerings within a brand that are really cool. You know, it's just to me, Hublot is like the high end Invicta, right? Because they're all handmade and they're very high end stuff. But you've got the Hublots that are just silly, ridiculous, that are for millionaires to see. Look at what I could afford, but they make some really.
You mean like
cool,
the La Ferrari?
Yeah, like that, or they've got some crazy ones, but they've also got some really cool kind of entry level, mid tier luxury watches.
Yeah, the one that
really
I posted on Instagram was gorgeous.
Yeah,
it had the screws on the outside with the brush bezel.
Is that
really really nice?
I think it's the Unico Classic or something, or maybe it's the Big Bang.
They had
Classic,
a couple. They had like 3 different colors, but
they're not crazy at all.
It was lovely.
They're good looking watches. So, you know, I think back to my point is I want to see more innovation from some of these other brands, right? Omega did it with the Coax how many years ago in the 90s, and they really haven't innovated since.
Well, and and
now they come out with their old movement. Come on, guys, let's move forward. And I know people are going to disagree with me on this. People are going to want that because it's the movement that went to the moon, blah, 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 whatever. I mean,
the movement in your manual wine watch that went to the moon is 30 seconds off per day. So
yeah,
it's not a very accurate watch.
It's not a good movement by today's standard. The 861 or the 1861 now, and mine's the 1863 only because it's got extra decoration on it, but mechanically it's identical to the 1861. Yeah, but it's
exhibition.
Not in today's standards. It's not a very good movement. I mean, it's reliable, it runs, but that's
not accurate.
That thing loses or gains like 10 or 15 seconds a day. I got most of my Seikos are better than that. So that's because it's old. So why would I spend a ton of money for an even older movement where they've done no improvement? It just rubs me the wrong way.
And you sense the ego too with some of the brands too, where they. We talked about this in the last episode, where you've got the more welcoming. They're innovating, they're welcoming, they're bringing you in versus, oh, my stuff's so great and I don't have to change it. And I'm so wonderful. And if you don't like it, you can just walk out the door, which is why we left Panerai and we left all these different places when we were looking for a watch for me that day.
They make you feel like you're lucky to be buying it, which Rolex is the same way. And I have to admit that even though it is that way, I still love the brand, but I love the watches.
I don't regret not getting the Explorer 2 because it just wasn't a good experience. Yeah. And I didn't want to, I saved a lot of money by,
that was less to do with the brand though, and more to do with the experience in that particular store.
But that was actually a really old watch too.
Yeah. But
it's very old.
You know, again, just more innovation. I'd like to see more, the big brands driving more affordable entry-level options. I think that's always great. I would love to see an Omega. And I keep coming back to Omega, but I think it's a good brand to talk about because
their quality
it runs
is amazing.
The gamut. They have good quality. They have entry-level stuff. By entry-level, like $4,000. I think it'd be neat to see an Omega in like the $2,500 range. Just a good, solid, basic three-hander, no coax movement. I'd like to see more entry-level stuff from some of these brands. I think that's really the only way they're going to survive.
I tried on that Railmaster with the denim dial.
Oh, yeah. It's
pretty expensive for a very casual watch.
$5,000, isn't it?
Very like casual. Yeah. And that's okay. Casual's okay. I could wear it every day. But, when you're on a budget, you have to think about this kind of stuff.
So, PG, is there anything else that you are hoping for 2019 before we wrap this episode up?
I can tell you're ready to wrap.
We're at an hour and a half, so
it's
definitely time to wrap. But I wanted to give you an opportunity if there's anything else you want to see.
One thing I noticed with SIHH, with what I saw on the buzz on Instagram, was that things looked more casual to me. Things were not as detailed. I saw a lot of stuff with not applied indices, things that were a little bit more scaled back, like the Panerai did not have the sandwich dial. I think we're kind of seeing, I don't know if that's like a throwback to the 80s, because I know 80s are really hot right now.
Super hot. It's because all of us
like
that came
Pink
of
and Gray.
age in the 80s have
Gray.
spending money.
Pink and Gray is really big.
Yeah. So you're looking for kind of more...
I'm missing the quality.
Interesting. You think the quality is dropping?
I think they're calling it campy and retro, and they're saving money.
That's possible.
But what do I know?
Well,
I'm kind of an outsider on the watch thing because I didn't really come into this. I celebrated 1,500 followers today on my Instagram.
That's awesome.
But I came into this by accident. So we had a lot of great conversation at home, and this is how we got here. So we just chit chat.
I mean, you're an insider for sure. You read the articles, you go to the shows.
Oh,
with,
yeah.
You are an insider now in terms
and I think
of knowledge. But
I think I surprise people that I
think so.
That I know
I think so.
Some things. I don't know everything, but I know a little bit about a few things. So
one thing we didn't get to today, which we'll maybe try to get to in the next episode, is we'll talk about the moon phase complication and how it works in the history. We didn't get to that today.
Yeah, it's a really interesting history lesson.
So what else to look for? Stay tuned. We're going to have another upcoming episode of What's in the Collection. We've done a couple of those, and we want to do a third one, which is basically just us telling you guys what we have in our personal collections.
Those were really popular.
One thing we didn't announce today, we have to apologize, but due to the health and stuff, we didn't get the drawing done for our regrammers, or our folks that were regrammed.
We got some great prizes for that.
We are going to draw a name for those that were regrammed in 2018. We already announced what the prizes were: a signed copy of 100 plus No BS watch tips, and a band, and some spring bars, and a watch tool from Terry over at Toxic Natives. So
aren't we also including 2019?
No, this is just 2018.
Okay.
We're going to do one for the first half of 2019. So 6 months worth of regrams for 2019. This one is going to be the best one because we didn't start our regrams in June. We started them October, November. So you don't have as much competition if you got regrammed in 2018. So you guys got a good shot. Everyone that got regrammed has a good shot at this one. So we'll do that drawing between now and next week's show, and then contact the winner. And then we will announce that winner on next week's show.
I think we're going to do something really crazy and creative that I saw from one of my friends who's a waterfowl rescuer.
Don't spoil it.
Oh.
Don't spoil
it.
If you want to do it as a video on Instagram,
we might try it. We might try something unique.
Yeah. So
to have one of our pets pick the winner.
We might try that. But in any case, however we do it, it'll be between this week and next week before we announce it.
I want to tell.
I don't want to spoil it.
Well, I didn't say any details.
I
didn't say any details.
So that'll be announced next time, and I think that's probably about it. Check out YouTube. We have the Noticed review is up there.
Yes, we did
Look
a joint
for more content coming up on YouTube.
My first video review.
Yeah, and definitely subscribe to us on YouTube because we're going to have some special stuff coming up for our YouTube subscribers as well. So go subscribe to us on YouTube. If you guys have ideas for videos that you want to see, either for reviews or informational stuff, let us know. We'd be happy to put that up there. Same with show topics. If you're a watch newbie and there's some topics you don't understand, let us know.
Followers on our show. So
a lot of our followers on Instagram are new to Instagram. So I know a lot of them are new to watch collecting. But anyway, if you guys have ideas you want to hear about that we haven't done in the past show, let us know. Please follow us on Instagram. The one thing I will ask, I haven't asked in a few shows, please, if you're listening to us on iTunes, give us a quick rating. And if you got, 2 minutes, do a quick written review for us. We'd appreciate it because that really affects how our podcast comes up in iTunes when people search for topics.
It's all the details and
it's ridiculous, and I hate to have to keep asking, but if you guys
could
like
please,
if you're enjoying it, and
it doesn't have to be a long review,
and if you're not enjoying it, let us know and review us. I mean, I had a listener reach out or emailed us. They were, upset with some things that we had said in a show, and I responded to that with some comments on the website, and I responded, and I think that kind of helped clear it up. But definitely let us know. Let us know how we're doing. If you think there's something missing from the show, or
we don't want to hurt any feelings either.
Give us a rating. If it's not a 5-star and it's only a 2 or a 3-star, tell us why, right? Let us know, but
let us fix it.
Yeah. We're doing this for you guys. I mean, this is not,
it's our hobby.
As we've stated many times, we're not making a single penny on the show. We're doing it for you. We're doing it because we love watches, and we figured we'd take our conversations to the air and to other watch fans. So feel free to get angry with us, but just know we will always respond, and we will take all the comments to heart because we're doing this for you. And if people don't like it, there's no reason for us to do it. And I know 99% of the comments are very positive, but, long story short, review us on iTunes, follow us on Instagram, at Love and Watches. And we do have a Facebook site. I don't keep it up. It really just gets updated when I do posts on the website. So still don't know if we're going to do anything on Facebook. If we do, I'll probably be asking for help from
Instagram's a lot of work.
Instagram in and of itself.
It's been a lot of work. And I'm getting chemo and doing all my things. So I'm not, you're doing a lot of the responding on Instagram for the Love and Watches. So I have to give you props for that, Rand Tracer.
I try, but you've been doing more posts on Love and Watches, which is a good thing because we want to keep both of those
trying to keep it fun
perspectives. But yeah, it is a lot of work, and it's not like I said, it's not something that we have income from. We do it because we love it, and something I want to do is improve my photography. Mike and Kaz did a great show last week, or no, it was Monday of last week.
That was a fun one
on photography and just how to improve your photography skills. How they
Hi
do
guys.
It. That's one thing I really want to improve upon, and it's something that we're working on because I think especially these
hobby
days
of mine.
In Instagram, if you want to build followers, you better have good quality because there's a lot of junk on Instagram. Some of my stuff's junk, and I noticed the stuff that's not. It's not a good picture. It gets fewer likes.
Mine gets a little blurry, but
yours are better than mine.
I'm trying. I have a little bit of a gene. My dad was a really good photographer, so I have a little bit of that, but.
We're bottom line is we're trying
to share our fun.
Yeah, and we're trying to improve the photography, and that'll get better over time as we figure that stuff out. But anyway, I think that's enough. I think we gotta wrap this show.
Rambling on
about what I want you guys to do. But anyway, let's wrap it for episode 23. This is Ranch Racer.
And I'm Perpetual Girl, and thank you for listening to us talk about our passion and our hobby.
And we will see you guys for episode 24. Later.
Bye-bye.